evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here with Jan Etienne, distinguished author, also distinguished scholar and academic. I'm not going to take too much of the limelight away from Jan. I'm actually going to let her introduce herself. So, Jan, tell us a bit about yourself.
My name is Jan Etienne, as you said. I work at Birkbeck College. I'm a lecturer in social policy and education. But recently, my latest book, Learning in Womanist Ways, I've had a mind-blowing tour. Since May, when the book was published, when it came out, I have been to a series of book launches. Quite impressive. Trying to get those messages across, particularly around matriarchal learning hubs.
Wow, that's really fantastic. And actually a really interesting, but really, I would say, understudied subject. Having sat through your talk here this evening, it's given me great insight, but also touched some of the key kind of passions that I have in terms of issues that affect our community, certainly along the lines of race, but also along the lines of gender. So tell me a bit about your past. I know you're a lecturer, you're an academic, you're a writer, but tell me kind of what got you here.
Okay, well, I'm one of those machine politicians in the sense that I have worked in local government. I was a women's rights officer in the London Borough of Hackney. I also worked as a race equality advisor in the London Borough of Haringey, and also in housing and race relations in the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. So when I refer to that machine politician, it's basically to say, I have had that full-time experience of working in politics, working in local government, working in areas of social justice and social conflict as well. So I stood as a parliamentary candidate. Yes, I stood in Southend West. And I must say that in terms of politics, in terms of education, I really feel very strongly that now I have actually arrived at a place where I feel that some of these significant messages around tackling racism in the 21st century, tackling, issues which impact on the black community, I'm at a place where I feel I can be able to use my voice, use my research in order to find, hopefully, some solutions to some of our issues.
That's fabulous. And can I just say what a fantastic voice and a powerful voice you have. Very captivating, very enthralling, and definitely makes people like myself, who we've stumbled across you this evening, stand up and sit up and actually listen. So tell us a bit about the book. What gave you the idea for this book, what you're trying to achieve from this book, and kind of the audience that you're trying to reach with this book.
Okay. First of all, the inspiration from this book initially came from research that I conducted in the Women's Institute, an ESRC, Economic Social Research Council grant, which Birkbeck, the University of London, was awarded. And I worked as a research officer. So I interviewed a lot of white women, white middle-class women, older white women across the country, mainly in rural areas. In my journey, I did not come across one older black woman. For me, coming from a Caribbean heritage, I wanted to interview women of my mother's generation. I wanted to talk to them about their lifelong learning journey. I wanted to look at education, second chance education, for women who were classified as those first-generation Caribbeans coming to the UK in the 1950s and early 1960s. And so it was the inspiration for my PhD research. That was it. And at this particular stage, the book demonstrates, it features the voices of these women, these powerful black women, speaking about their learning experiences in those colonized Caribbean islands, a British education experience, and coming over here to this country and battling with racism, battling with discrimination, and finding learning now in their later years. And I was inspired by the women's experiences of learning in order to benefit the wider black community.
That sounds fabulous. And actually, as a black woman in the younger generation, that really resonates with me, because learning is so important. But you spoke about informal learning as well as formal learning and non-formal learning, and how actually all of those forms of learning are hugely important in shaping any individual, and they don't have to come from necessarily the conventional institutions of university, for example, or a college, for example. That I'm sure you would have found, ladies and women from the generation before me would have maybe struggled with entering those institutions because they were unfamiliar and they were unwelcoming, and so kind of battling against that, but understanding and sharing that actually learning comes in many different forms. So what I would ask you, as learned as you are, we never stop learning. So throughout the experience of writing this book, and speaking to these women, which must have been such an amazing experience. I mean, to actually connect with people, on a direct level and get their direct experiences. But what I would say to you is, what do you think is the most powerful or the most important thing that you've learned on the journey of writing this book?
Okay, for me the most powerful thing is really the fact that learning is not just about that educational establishment, those higher formal arenas of learning. What I found was that in those informal social settings, what I refer to as those matriarchal learning hubs, the women were bringing their experiences of colonialism, their experiences of racism, their engagement with younger women in those informal learning settings were very powerful. In my mind, I felt that in many instances, the women were learning better, more confident. They were able to challenge each other, particularly around their development in terms of communication skills and their ability to speak about their experiences on tenants boards as community organizers. They were able to actually give that the powerful nature of learning in order to do something useful in their community, in their later years. So for me, the message about, the academic establishment sometimes produces barriers which prevent real, genuine learning for the benefit of others, for the benefit of oneself, but for the benefit of others to shine. This was it for me, the most powerful experience. It's those non-academic settings which we are able to thrive and be very genuine in.
Jan, thank you very much for sharing your expert knowledge and your insight and your experience with us. I think it's in ways like this that's how we can not only progress as a community, but also to progress as a society overall. And I think, individuals like you are key in driving that progression, but also bringing others along with you. And through sharing your experiences through your book and through writing about the kind of research that you've undertaken, but in a really palatable and really easy to digest way. I mean, as you said, these are direct kind of narratives from these women, untouched narratives. So actually they will have a real kind of resolute, they will echo with people in a way that potentially a more academic based book wouldn't be able to touch certain people. So I really want to thank you for that. But also, I want to ask you, what's next? What can we expect from you next, Jan?
Okay, well, I have a project that I'm working on at the moment, and this is related to black men and their voices, particularly in urban areas. That's the next project. Again, those raw, natural narratives, telling it like it is, but in this academic discourse world that we live in.
That sounds absolutely amazing. And if it's anything like the work you've done now, I'm in huge anticipation of seeing your next work come out. But thank you very much once again for sharing. It's been an absolute pleasure and inspiration talking to you. And just let the people out there know, as we've said, Jan has got her book out, Womanist Ways, a fantastic book. Please go out there, purchase a copy. Jan, just give the ladies and gentlemen out there a little show of your book and your work. And also, just watch this space for more kind of work that's coming up from Jan. And I'm going to hand it over to Jan now to let you know where you can find out a bit more about her, a bit more about her work, and indeed a bit more about Birkbeck.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I have a website, learninginwomanistways.com, and it is pretty interactive, so I'm hoping that we will get some challenging discussion going on here. I also teach at Birkbeck, University of London. I teach on a Master's MSc, Education, Power and Social Change. And those of you who are also interested in perhaps undergraduate study, I also teach on a BSc Social Science degree. So, lots going on, lots for the future. I'm hoping that I will be somewhere near you, perhaps next year.
I think we hope so too. So once again, very special thank you to you, Jan Etienne. Once again, a pleasure and an honor. I'm Janelle Raeburn. You've been watching iDeLick Media. Have a pleasant and wonderful day. Thank you.